given us some fantastic feedback on how we can make 4.0 an impactful update. We didn't want to just trickle out a few changes and do a small release. We wanted to go big with this update. And I think 4.0, what you're going to see in 4.0 is definitely due to a lot of the customer feedback that we've received. Another quick acknowledgement, our dev and engineering team has been working tirelessly on this. We put so many things on them to figure out how to figure out how to deploy this and get this 4.0 release out to the field. So guys in our internal dev and engineering time, those guys, they came up big with this delivery. So let's jump into it. First off, why are we making these changes? Well, first off, we talked to a lot of our customers. Customers told us that there's a theme here, by the way, that you're going to see with this whole 4.0 release. Customers told us they want faster recovery. They need a single, easy-to-use interface. A lot of our customers have told us, and a lot of the market analysts have told us that we're probably one of the easiest-to-use backup and recovery and DR solutions out on the market, but we wanted to make it even easier. And they wanted it more secure. There's a lot of reasons to make your backup solution more secure, a lot of them being ransomware. The fear of ransomware just will not go away. So a lot of our customers who are not supposed to or are not being forced to hold their data in an encrypted state, they wanted it anyway. They wanted to make sure that the vendor who is collecting their data locally and holding it offsite is doing it in a way where it's encrypted, where it cannot be seen or used by other people. These are just some of the highlights of the things that our customers have told us. So beyond that, we decided to do a survey. We created a survey, and we call it the 2016 State of DR. It's actually as a handout as part of this webinar. You'll actually see two handouts. One is a slide presentation that I'm going through, slide by slide. But more importantly, there's a lot of very interesting details in that State of DR. What we learned was that a lot of customers are still looking and they're still wanting a cloud DR provider. Now, the cloud DR provider, it's pretty simple why they want it. Imagine if you're a customer and you want that resilience, that if you have a site-wide outage, you can quickly get back online. Well, cloud DR effectively and pretty cost-effectively allows you to do that. Instead of having to rent space and at a colo and pay for bandwidth, you can now make a copy of your entire data center and put it with another provider. But they didn't just want any old provider. They wanted somebody who could securely hold their data. A lot of people told us that they weren't necessarily all that interested in doing cloud storage with a public cloud provider. They wanted a private cloud provider, somebody who ensures their data is only seen by them, can only be accessed by them. And they wanted to know who is actually able to access my data. That's what they told us. They told us that, backup and recovery is one of those solutions where it pays to have a single vendor. It pays to have a unified vendor that can back up everything, that can recover quickly, and then add that offsite component. They didn't want to deal with multiple vendors that they have to negotiate contracts with. They did not want to deal with multiple contacts that they have to call when they needed support. They wanted that single vendor, that unified solution. And this was kind of surprising to us. A lot of customers out there, or actually a lot of people in this DR report, they told us that they wanted flash speed recovery. Now, what is flash speed recovery? Well, we in IT know that a lot of people are investing in SSD cache SANs, basically workloads that rely on fast transactions, okay? So what the backup and recovery market has been missing for quite a while, up until now, is the ability to have a solution where you can protect those SSD cache speed applications with a like-matched BDR solution that's all built on flash. And that's what we're talking about today. The last thing that they told us was they want freedom of ransomware. They wanted a solution where they can finally put the whole discussion about ransomware to bed. They're looking for a solution where if they need to recover, they know their recovery solution is A, it's going to be as fast as production. You're not going to have any performance impact. B, they needed to be able to recover from any point in time. That was huge to them. Not just recovering files, but they needed to make sure that, hey, if ransomware gets to the point where it's actually locking OS files or locking database files or even locking entire VMs, they need a solution that is secure enough to guarantee that if they have a ransomware event, they can be back up and running with no one knowing that it even happened. The days of even considering paying the ransom are essentially gone. And again, I kind of feel personally like the discussion of ransomware is one of those things that it just keeps coming up. And I think a lot of people are tired of talking about it. But it's an important discussion. I think a lot of people just want to get beyond it. And so these are some of the main things that we learned by not only talking to our customers, but then talking to the market. What are other people wanting out there in their next or in the next generation of backup and recovery? So let's talk about what's new in 4.0. Some pretty big changes. So 4.0 is a culmination of changes to both the hardware architecture along with the software and user experience responsible for recovery. So on the hardware side, OnQ 4.0 has an all-new hardware architecture leveraging SSD cache and a virtual SAN. Now these are pretty important. Combine those two and you're getting cache speed backup and cache speed recovery. We're going to talk about all this in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, but the main thing here is our hardware has completely been transformed into a purpose-built backup appliance that we ship out to customers. It's going to collect data at cache speed and then recover at cache speed. We're also very excited to introduce an enterprise scale modular appliances. This is going to allow us to protect those enterprise scale environments. This is something that in our wheelhouse of appliances, we've always had to stack on appliances until we can meet the need of their capacity, but now we have a solution that is truly going to allow us to go and talk to those enterprise customers that need a solution to protect hundreds of terabytes and hundreds of servers and VMs. So we're super excited to talk about this new enterprise scale deployment. Now on the software side, the software changes are, it all boils down to making the solution easier to manage. And it all starts with a completely new unified user interface. This is that single dashboard that our customers have been asking us to develop for years. It's that single place that you go to manage servers that are local, manage servers that are remote, use it as a test network, make sure replication is working. It's going to pull every single one of your resources as far as backup and recovery into one easy-to-use dashboard that you can access from anywhere. That is the underlying, a very, very large change to 4.0. Another one, and this ties directly into security and that ransomware discussion, any point in time recovery. In the past, and a lot of backup vendors allow you to spin up clones of your environment, spin up clones of your servers. But a lot of them are going to spin it up based on your last backup. Well, in 4.0, you're going to be able to start a recovery node. We call it recovery node. I know that there's a lot of existing customers on here, so this is going to be redundant for them. But for those who haven't necessarily heard of Quorum that much, we call a recovery node is a clone of your server. And you can now instantly power up in a cached state, instantly power up a recovery node from any point of time. This is really important for that ransomware discussion because a lot of people, the scenario is real where you potentially could back up bad data. And we wanted to build a solution where you do not have to worry about how far back can I recover from. Now workload tagging. Workload tagging is a really nice feature. The administrator of this solution is going to love this feature. Workload tagging essentially says, let's tag dependent servers, and let's make it so you the customer, you the administrator, can with a single click recover an entire group of servers. It's going to make managing the solution easier than it has ever been before. And jumping back to security, encryption is now default at rest. Okay, our financial and our healthcare companies, customers, always love to hear that we can do encryption in motion and encryption at rest. We've always done encryption at rest by deploying encrypted drives. However, now every single appliance that we ship out, all data that we collect, every single data, both locally and remote, will always be encrypted at rest. This is one of those things that, again, customers want to make sure that if you've got that ransomware or security event, that no matter what's in your network, it's not going to have access to your recovery solution. And then finally, compression. Compression is one of those things that is now native with us. Compression is there because we want to be able to store more data on our appliances and give our customers the option to increase their backup windows and increase their retention times. Okay, compression is going to allow us to store so much more data on the appliances and extend that data retention out to way beyond 30 and 40 days. This is something that our customers have been asking for, and the market told us that they needed. They needed the ability to store as much data as they need without having to go through a painful upgrade process to add capacity. So those are the highlights of 4.0. Now, how do we do it? Now, on the hardware side, we've introduced completely new appliances. The appliances come with technologies called NVMe cache. This is the underlying reason that the backup and recovery process will be faster than ever before. Now, this is the request that we've received. Again, market and our customers have asked us for a solution that will match their plans to go to SSD SANs. Okay, as customers invest in flash-based production SANs and direct attached storage and design workloads that are meant to be highly transactional and extremely fast, they want to make sure that their backup and recovery solution is as fast. Okay, there's no point failing over a high-speed application to a slow-speed recovery solution. We get it, we understand it, and that's why we made this dramatic change. Now, on the enterprise scale, we're introducing an appliance. We call it OnQ Pod. Now, the enterprise side of this is going to protect customers starting at 150 terabytes of customer data and in the neighborhood of 200 VMs or physical servers. Remember, with Quorum, we are that unified solution that protects physical and virtual. And now with enterprise, now with OnQ Pod, we're going to be deploying a solution that's going to go all the way up to 150 terabytes and 200 servers of protection for each pod. Now, the great thing about Pod is that you're going to be able to scale this as much as you want, and as with little challenge to adding either capacity to storage or capacity to back up more servers. One thing I'm excited about on a personal level, and this comes from being an IT director. Back in the old days of when I worked on enterprise IT and was trying to make decisions, one of the things I learned early on was anytime I'm making an investment to future-proof it, right? Technology changes all the time. It's always progressing at a rate that, you know, honestly, our capital expenses probably don't have enough room to keep up with it. But with the backup and recovery solution, we thought, okay, again, we're not trickling out a small change here. We're making an enormous change to 4.0, and one of those is, let's make this box future-proof. Let's put 10 gig networking on its standard. So for the customers out there that are looking at revising their production systems and investing in higher speed LANs and switches up to 10 gigs, we've got you covered. Every single appliance, from the very smallest appliance all the way up to our largest enterprise appliance, everything that we ship out will ship out with 10 gig NICs. This again, we're trying to keep in mind that, you know, the BDR solution is not something that you go out and buy more than once every, 3 to 5 years, hopefully. And we want to make sure that that solution, we've thought about the future, and we're not really giving an option. We're saying, hey, this is the way that we're going forward from here forward. Now, memory. Any seasoned virtualization expert is going to tell you memory is almost always the bottleneck. Memory and honestly spinning disk is almost always the performance bottleneck. You can't have too much memory. And honestly, memory is probably one of the cheapest ways that you can increase the experience of a virtualized environment. So all of our appliances, again, from the very smallest appliances, the ones that are designed to protect those Soho offices, they're coming with 64 gigs of memory standard. Okay. The idea behind that is, let's take the approach of over-provisioning memory from the get-go, from the very smallest appliance, and even all the way on the high end. We can now send out appliances that come with 2 terabytes of RAM. And if you need more, if you're on the OnQ Pod solution, it's pretty easy to upgrade it. It's essentially as easy as adding a blade, either a new blade chassis or plugging in more blades. So memory is one of those things that we are taking the approach of, let's over-provision that. It's cheap. We know it's a bottleneck. Same with networking. It's a cheap upgrade. We feel like we're doing right by our future customers by future-proofing the environment with higher speed networking and plenty of memory. Now, talk about the software a little bit. Software, honestly, it's all about the new UI. The UI is that single pane of glass experience. That's going to allow customers or the admins to go to a single dashboard and manage the entire solution. Okay, this is something that customers with a bunch of sites or a bunch of servers or managing a local and remote solution, have been asking for years, and it's such an easy way to manage the entire environment. We've also put it into mind that, listen, we know backup administrators and administrators in general, backups are not something you want to spend or consume a lot of your time on, all right? So part of our new UI is that we're putting problems to the top. We're putting them right up in your face to say, hey, as soon as you log into the dashboard, you will see immediately what you need to address, or you're going to see immediately what you need to tell our support team. Gone are the days of having to maneuver through a bunch of windows to find out where the problem is, or pull a log to trace down what's going on. Our dashboard is now built in a way where it's built on the premise that backup should work. If you have problems, you need to know about them immediately and quickly have a way to resolve the issue. So again, 4.0, I mean, can't say it enough. The new user interface is going to completely transform the experience behind recovering servers both locally and remote. Now, virtual SANs. Talk a little bit about virtual SANs. This is a technology that is going to allow the recovery nodes. Remember, the recovery nodes are VM clones. This is going to allow them to run at cache speed. The virtual SAN is one of those things. Again, it has some pretty cool features also, like expanding capacity. Okay, in the days before we had a virtual SAN, as we collect backup data, it would go straight to spinning disk. Now that's okay. That's good in its own realm. But a virtual SAN is going to allow us to collect backup data to SSD cache running on a virtual SAN before committing them to virtual disk. I'm going to explain this in an image here in just a minute. But know that the virtual SAN is one of those things that will speed up recovery. It will make adding capacity in the future easier than has ever been done before. Now, instant recovery from any point in time. Let me jump right down to the bold. Our current customers who are on the phone, you're going to love this. There's no more repo and RN volume. You guys remember that our appliances would ship with two volumes, one to hold the backup data. Backup data is used for file level restores. The other volume is essentially a copy of the servers. We create a VM clone of every single one of your servers. And so you have kind of this duplicate data sitting there, and it's consuming a fair amount of space, eating into the available storage on the appliance. So we're done with that. We now have a single backup repository that we boot recovery nodes from. This is one of those reasons that I gave out that acknowledgement to our engineering and dev staff. This is an immense change in the way that we deploy our technology. If you go to fail over a server now, you're going to be presented with all of the snapshots that you have taken and all of them that you're holding on the appliance. So if you're holding 180 days of retention on the appliance and you're backing up a server twice a day, you've got all those snapshots where you can instantly power on a recovery node from any of those point in times. Now, this is great, obviously, for the failover scenario. Let's say you backed up bad data and you need to power up an RN from last Tuesday morning. You can do that instantly. But even think about it from a testing point of view. If you wanted to look and see how a server reacted before you applied a patch or after you applied a patch, now you're going to be able to instantly power on an RN in a cached virtual SAN running at cache speeds and use that appliance as your personal sandbox to test what's going on in your environment. So that instant server recovery, again, current customers know that we have listened to you and that we now have that single repo, that single data repo where you can do file level restores and you can boot RNs from that same data store. Again, the premise here, or the idea here, is having a solution that can back up more customer data and add a whole nother feature set to this solution, which is backing up the servers from anywhere in time. Compression. Compression was one of those things that, again, we said, all right, we're going to do this natively. We're going to compress all data that we collect. It's all deduplicated in two places. That hasn't changed. The way that we deduplicate from the protected server all the way down to replicating it to the offsite DR, that process is the same. But now what we're doing is, as we collect backup data, we're going to compress it. Minimum compression ratios, 30%. That means an immediate 30% increase in how much you can store on the appliance. This means, hey, if you want to back up more servers or more data on a smaller appliance, you can do that now. More importantly, if we size out the appliance to assume growth and assume data change on a daily basis, you can now hold backups for longer. You know, we're still that unified vendor where you use us for backup, you use us for recovery, and you use us for long-term archiving. But I've always thought, you know what, 30 days of retention is, that's like a good baseline. But realistically, I might want to have my email server or my file server or a server that's, you know, incredibly transactional. I may want to keep backups on that for 100 days. You never know how far you're going to want to have to go back in the past. So compression is going to allow us to store more data and increase backup retention times. Now, encryption. Encryption is now done at rest by default. We've always encrypted all data in motion, meaning every time we take a backup from your production server and send it to the local Quorum appliance, that data is encrypted. But now, as it lands on the appliance, it's also going to be encrypted. So that encryption at rest, by default, is absolutely necessary for our financial and our healthcare customers and our new customers that are coming on board with those compliance needs. However, customers that are looking for that secure BDR solution to make sure that if they have a security breach on their production network, it is not going to crawl and touch their backup system, we're now the vendor that backs up everything at rest. We do this by default. From a customer point of view, you're going to have full access to key management. You're going to be the person in charge of making sure that only you see the data locally and at the offsite DR. So those are the main things that we've changed on the hardware side and on the software side. Let's take a little closer look at the hardware. Now, I mentioned this term, I think I mentioned this term in the past, this direct path to I/O. This is the idea that recovery nodes, remember those VM clones that we build, we want them to be faster than ever. And we don't want them to just run and flash. We want to give them direct access to the drives, to the NIC, to the memory, and to the CPU. We want to essentially get the hypervisor up and out of the way. The hypervisor still does its job. It still creates the VMs. But when it comes time to run those VMs, we want to give them a direct path to I/O because we want recovery to be faster than any of our, we want recovery to be as fast as your production network and potentially faster than your production network. Flash speed recovery, the ability to run recovery nodes in a cache. This is going to greatly improve recovery speeds. Let's talk about a few industry terms here. A lot of us know about RPO. That's recovery point objective. That's how far in the past are you willing to recover from. Okay, another term out there, RTO, recovery time objective. How long is it going to take you to get back online? Meaning, if you've got 10 minutes of downtime, how much does it cost you? And what are you willing to have for an RTO? Here's a new one, and I'm not going to claim this myself. I talked to an analyst a couple weeks ago, and he gave this to me. I can't express how much I think this applies to our 4.0 update. Here's a new one, RPE, recovery performance expectation. All right, this just means, does your recovery performance match production? Period. That's a question. Okay, does it exceed it? What would you do as a customer if your backup solution was actually faster than production? Would it maybe drive a change to production to get those speeds on the production side? How does this impact testing? Again, if you're on the verge of deploying a new set of servers, let's say you're jumping to Server 2016 or a new web app or a new accounting app, you can now use the Quorum solution to spin up test nodes or test recovery nodes of these in cache speeds. This is going to greatly increase the ability to, or the likelihood that you're going to use our appliance as a testing tool, not just a backup and a recovery tool, but actually a way to test your environment. I'll talk about this in a second, but 25,000 IOPS. This is a pretty big number where it comes to when it comes to actual performance of the recovery nodes. I'll address that in just a second. And then hardware changes. We've now got that OnQ pod that can protect, or that goes all the way up to 400 terabytes of raw storage. Let's look and look a little bit more specifically about the changes to hardware. Okay, so the 3.9 architecture, very standard appliance stack. You've got your hardware, you've got your hypervisor, and you got your VM sitting on top of the hypervisor. We had a VM that was responsible for collecting data. That's called OnQ. It would collect the data. It would pass the data through the hypervisor to the spinning disk. If you had to spin up a recovery node, it passes it through the hypervisor and then gives access to the NIC, the spinning disk, the memory, and the CPU. Now, that's been good for years. There's not a huge problem with that. However, the speed is maybe not as good as it could be. So we're changing that completely. In 4.0, all of our appliances, they're still going to have a hypervisor. Hypervisor is going to be running on its own SSD. Okay. However, the VMs are going to be running in a ZFS virtual SAN. Well, what does this mean? This means we're getting the hypervisor out of the way so VMs have direct access to the I/O, to the hardware, to the storage, the networking, the CPU, and the RAM. Okay, this is going to greatly speed up recovery. Again, we're talking about recovery nodes that have direct access to the hardware. Now, this is not necessarily a brand new technology that we're introducing. This is definitely brand new for the backup and recovery market, but production systems have been going to this. There's technology out there called NVMe cache. There's networking technology that allows you to bypass the hypervisor and give direct access to the VMs. So a lot of virtualized production companies are going to this, but I believe that we are the first backup and recovery solution that is leading with a direct path to I/O recovery. So let's talk a little bit about speed. So backup windows are going to be twice as fast. I throw out 2x as kind of a number out there that we've used in our testing network, our tests of 4.0, and then our POC customers that have received 4.0. And really 2x it's definitely much more than that. And again, if you're dealing with a 10 gig network and you're pulling incremental snapshots from your production servers, pushing them over 10 gig and pushing them to a cache first backup set, your backup windows are going to greatly shrink with 4.0. Talking about compression, it's one of those things, again, that we decided to do because you're going to be able to, on day one, increase your retention. So for customers, current customers who are holding 30 to 40 days of retention, you're immediately going to see a 30% increase up to on your retention side. Now, when we're talking about recovery speeds on the 4.0 appliance, let's talk about just raw numbers of IOPS, okay? 3.9 appliances, if you spin up a recovery node, they're going to run on average around 800 IOPS. At 4.0, you spin up a recovery node, it's running in that virtual SAN. It's going to be running at 25,000 IOPS. Again, the reason being, all the recovery nodes or the VMs are running on a virtual SAN with a direct path to the I/O, to the hardware of that appliance. This is going to greatly speed up recovery. You're going to be able to now protect those workloads that you built out in production to run at cached speeds. You're now going to have a backup and recovery solution that can match that. And in some cases, go beyond that. So I have a feeling that some existing customers or some new customers will come on board with Quorum, look at this 4.0 appliance, run some testing of recovery nodes, and find out that if you ran your production systems on Quorum, it's going to be faster. So that's probably most likely going to drive change in your production environment as well. So we're really, really satisfied and very, very happy with our testing of the speeds of not only the backup windows, but those recovery speeds. Let's talk a little bit about the appliances. So right off the top, every single one of our appliances, from the smallest to the largest, come with what is called a 400 gig SSD cache. This is where the virtual SAN lives. This is where everything is going to happen as far as recovery goes. Okay, all our appliances start as small as 5 terabytes and grow all the way up to 400 terabytes of raw storage. Everything by default, again, we're future-proofing your investment. Everything that by default is 10 gig networking. All hardware that we sell comes by default with 4x24 hardware support. This is one of those things, again, that our current customers love about us, and the market told us that they want. They want a single vendor that takes care of all recovery needs, both local and remote. They want that single vendor to call if they have a problem with the software or the hardware, and we are that vendor, and everything is coming with 4x24 support. Now, looking at the appliances on the very small side, again, everything starts at the smallest end of the spectrum with 64 gigs of RAM. And then that smaller series, the 404 series, it's going to come in 5 or 10 terabytes of raw storage. Okay, moving up to the 420 series, it's going to come by default with 128 gigs, but we can max that out at 768 gigs. Storage-wise, raw storage, 22 terabytes on the low end, 32 terabytes on the high end. The 424 series, that one is going to come standard with 256 gigs of memory, and again, we can max it out at 768 gigs of RAM. Storage side, 32 terabytes on the small side, 50 terabytes per this 2U appliance. Now this is the one that we're very excited about. Quorum now has an enterprise solution. We call it Pod. Now the Pod solution, it's a modular BDR solution. It's designed for enterprise scale environments. Now the solution is going to come with 400 terabytes of raw storage and up to 2 terabytes of RAM per pod. So what does that mean? How much can you protect with that? Well, typically speaking, you're going to be able to protect, each pod will be able to protect 150 terabytes of customer data and in the neighborhood of 200 or so average size servers. That's pretty good for a single pod. But here's the best thing. You can scale the pod solution however you want. If you're a customer that has 200 VMs on day one and you need to go to 300 VMs to adjust for a workload, but not really add a lot of storage, you can just buy more blades or another blade chassis and add on I/O. If you're a customer that's going to stick with, say, 200 VMs, but your footprint, your storage footprint is going to go from 150 terabytes to 300 terabytes, you can quickly add just storage. So the ability to independently grow the enterprise solution is one thing that I'm very, very excited about. So as far as the appliances go, again, everything we're trying to make this premise where everything is future-proofed, fast, and again, single vendor for every single aspect of data recovery. Now, on the software side, let's face it, it's all about the new user interface. The intent for the 4.0 software change is it's just to make it easier. Our solution has always been that one-click instant recovery solution, and it still is. However, now you're going to see everything under one dashboard that our customers have been asking for. From the single interface, you're going to see and manage local protection, replication, remote protection. No matter how many sites you have, no matter how many servers you have, no matter if you've got remote sites plus DR, you're going to see everything into one interface. Now, server cards. The server administrator is going to love the idea behind server cards. It's that single place to take action. It's literally the server that you're protecting, but it's the copy local and it's the copy remote. It's understanding how replication is running. It's understanding has the recovery node been updated on the remote side and the backup side. And all of that stuff is wrapped up. All the actions that you would ever take for a particular server that you're protecting, it's done under one place, and we call it a server card. Heat map. Heat map is the idea that if you are the administrator, you want to be able to log in and immediately find out what you need to address. If you've got a server down, it's going to show up at the top. If you have a server that had a problem backing up, it's going to show up at the top. Replication error, anything to do with the recovery node building or self-testing, it's going to show up at the top. We want to make this solution as easy to manage as possible and quickly find out where the issues are that you need to resolve. Same thing for our support team. This is going to greatly help us, our support team. Again, we're that single vendor where you call us for both hardware, software, and DR support, and we remote in, and we'll take a look at this dashboard and immediately find out where we need to address our time. On the right-hand side, you're going to see a rolling list of events. Again, these events are going to help limit down the information that you need to keep up on as the administrator. You're going to be able to see on the right-hand side system events that you need to address to make the solution continue to operate. Now, workload tagging. Workload tagging is the idea that customers out there have dependent servers. Okay, I'll throw out an example. Accounting server you may have might consist of, it may consist of 3 servers, and you'll be able to now tag those 3 servers and set policies, okay? So you'll be able to, for those three servers, say, I want to have 1-hour backups on those, and I want to keep all those backups for 65 days. But more importantly, you can instantly power up all 3 servers with a single click if you tag them. Okay, this is going to make failing over to the appliance easier than it's ever been before, and maybe more importantly, testing. You'll now be able to easily test from this interface your DR. You'll be able to easily test locally. If you want to spin up all 3 servers of your accounting system on the DR and test connectivity, you'll be able to do that all from one interface. These are the big changes that we've done with the 4.0 on the software side. Wrapping it up here, fast recovery. Again, premise here, you're going to see it, the theme I hope you're seeing with 4.0. It's fast, simple, and it's secure. All recovery is going to happen at SSD speed, cache speed. That new UI is going to pull everything together, so you're going to have a single dashboard to go to manage your entire solution. And it's secure. All data in motion and at rest is now encrypted by default. It's a lot more scalable. All right, we're compressing the data, so we're holding more data on the appliance. And that virtual SAN, that's going to allow us to add capacity easier than ever before. If we have to add either another server, or I'm sorry, another appliance, or extra disks, the virtual SAN is going to handle all of that arranging and all of the software array that's going to allow us to quickly add capacity. And remember, for those on the phone that are not currently Quorum customer, with Quorum, we are that single vendor that protects physical and virtual machines. We protect Windows and Linux. We protect any of your attached storage, SAN, NAS, or even cloud-based storage. We are that single vendor that provides local failover, local backup and recovery, as well as the ability to replicate your entire environment to your offsite DR or to our cloud. Our cloud is called DRES, Disaster Recovery as a Service. The solution that we're talking about is simple. It's got a single dashboard. We have workload recovery. The deployment of the solution is quicker than ever. DR seeding is going to be faster than ever because of how we're going to provision our on-queue instances. And flat out, it's fast. It's the backup speeds that we're seeing are at minimum twice as fast as 3.9. Recovery speeds, as we've talked about over and over, running in a virtual SAN that's running in a cache. Incredibly fast backup speeds that have direct path to I/O, and it's more secure than ever. All data that we're going to collect now is encrypted at rest. And remember, with our cloud is a private cloud. Okay, we don't put your data in a public cloud. We don't put it in AWS. We don't put it in Azure. We're focusing on creating an environment where if you decide to back up your data with us, you're going to know who has access to it and who can see it. So how do you get it? There's going to be a lot of questions, and I apologize for the audio outbreak here. It looks like we had a quick phone failure on my end, but I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to give some very specific answers. So for current customers, we do have a credit program for your previous purchase. We have a very quick migration plan in store. Main thing for current customers, get a hold of us. We'll get a hold of your account rep, and we'll find out the next steps to figure out how to get you to 4.0. Non-customers, people who are just learning about Quorum, chat with us at quorum.com, email us, or call us.